Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. I just want to very quickly show you how I'm going to make a jig to make accurate repeatable cuts with a guide rail system. I've got this stack of poplar plywood here. I'm making a workbench for the workshop and the rest of it is for a slat wall in the house. So with those two projects, I've got hundreds of cuts to do in this plywood. So I want to show you how I'm going to make a jig to make super accurate repeatable cuts every time. It's well worth doing because I've got so many cuts to do. But even if you had like double digits, it would still be well worth it just for the accuracy that each piece is going to be identical. So let's get on with it. So the first thing to do is to cut 2 strips of scrap material. You can use anything that you've got left over. I'm using 25mm plywood. These need to be screwed and glued together, and these will act as the fence of the jig. Next you need a base for the jig. Here I've got a piece of 11mm OSB board, and this is what the fence is going to be screwed onto. Again, I'm using screw and glue to attach this. Not in the video, but it is attached. Once the fence is attached to the base, I'm then using the guide rail and circular saw with the depth set to the right setting so it doesn't cut into the base, to create a perfectly straight line so that the fence and the base are perfectly square to each other. You don't have to do this, but if there's any difference between the 2 bits of 25mm plywood, this could cause a problem down the line. Next, just checking that the joint is perfectly squared, that my saw was set up correctly. What we now need to do is cut a piece of the material that we want to replicate the width of the guide rail. So this is a very simple one. You could square up an edge first and then align the back of the guide rail to the material and run it through. I find these guide rail systems are excellent bits of kit, but if there is dust on the backing, then they do have a tendency to move, so it's really important to get rid of the dust before you move the guide rail. The next cut that I'm marking out for is the width of the material that I want to replicate. So this piece here is 100mm wide. I need 10 of these, so I'm marking as accurately as I possibly can. I normally try and work to within 0.5mm accuracy, and this is the piece that I'm going to replicate, so I will make sure that I get this one right. You'll notice my saw is not struggling at all through this quite dense 18mm plywood. If you ever struggle with your saw, just put a new blade on. A new blade is so much safer than one that's on its way out. Next, I'm marking for the second cut that I need to repeat. This one is 82mm. The project I'm working on here is a multi-episode workbench series. I'm going to try and release a video each week, but I'm currently building it and hope to get the first episode out very soon. If you didn't catch my short video last week about setting up a circular saw and replacing the splinter guard on the guide rails, make sure to check that one out. A few years ago I was lucky enough to be sponsored by Festool, and they gave me some really great training, and it was good to get some behind the scenes insights into how they think about their tools. Here I'm using a set of digital calipers just to double check how my cuts have come out. You can get really accurate results with this method with a track saw. Use a very sharp pencil, make sure it's a 2H type pencil, and you can also use a marking knife if you prefer. As you can see, these cuts are pretty bang on. I normally aim for within like 0.2 or 3 of a millimetre. It's very doable. You just got to be diligent and take your time. Okay, so just to simplify and clarify, we have the OSB base with the square fence attached to it. We then have the piece of material the width of the guide rail. Sat above it is the piece of material we're going to replicate. The guide rail will sit next to that and cut into this piece, which is the material that we're working with. We're now ready to make the cuts of the repeats. So the jig is set up and we've got all the pieces we need. Basically, whatever is on top is going to be mirrored beneath. So once you get your head around it, it's a very simple system and it works great. You can see why if the fence wasn't square, you would have issues now because the cut would either be bigger or smaller than what you're trying to replicate. Another really important point, make sure everything is really tight up to the fence that you've created. If there are gaps, obviously the measurements are going to be out, so just be really diligent, make sure there's no dust, and yeah, get that right and everything else will just flow. At this point I'm now using the jig in anger. I'm cutting the 100mm sections for the workbench that I actually require, and I need 10 of these like I said before, so let's see how they turn out. Again, using the digital calipers just to double check the measurements. The beauty of this system is that there's no thinking involved. Once you've set it up, it's just a matter of like going through a process. You can get music on or a podcast and just like do hundreds of these cuts, and the time goes surprisingly quick actually when you need to do this type of work. So as you can see, I'm well within my 0.5 millimetre tolerance. I'm happy with this. I think 0.2 or 0.3 of a millimetre, you can't feel it to the human touch, so that's good enough for the work that I'm doing. Now it's a matter of just rattling through the cuts and getting the work done. I hope this video was useful to you guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll be honest, these videos that I'm making at the moment, they're more a practice, getting used to the camera, editing and doing YouTube in general. So please subscribe. I've got some really cool, interesting videos coming up. I wish I could tell you what they are. Super exciting. I think you'll really enjoy them. Okay, so I've now cut all of them, and it really is impressive just how accurate you can get these cuts, because if only you could feel, there is just no difference whatsoever. It really is quite impressive what can be done with a homemade jig.